Hey ghouls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be my April TBR. Now, I am really excited for April. I don't necessarily have the most concrete plans for most of my reading month for April, but I feel like it's normally a pretty good reading month for me, and this year just in particular, I guess, has been a really good reading year for me so far. I am basing a lot of my TBR off of the Spring-Fling-A-Ween Readathon. That's not until the end of the month. It's only through the 27th through the 30th. However, I did just go ahead and plan like a lot of my reading around that. I've had a lot of success with the horror genre this year, in particular new releases for the horror genre, so I'm very much in a horror mood. So just overall, pretty much this TBR is going to be very horror central. So even though it doesn't happen until the end of the month, I'm going to quickly go over my TBR for that readathon first. Now, since it is only a weekend long, we do only have 3 prompts. One of them is make a fall themed drink or pastry, so that one's not a reading prompt. We only have 2 reading prompts, which is nice. The first one is read a book with pink or yellow on the cover, and for this one I have a couple of different ideas for what I wanted to read, kind of trying to keep it in like a spooky speculative place for the readathon. So my first pick, We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan Berry. I do have this as an audiobook through Libro FM, and my cover shows that it's mostly green. It does have pink and yellow accents, but I know there is a copy floating around out there that's like an all pink cover as well. So this one takes place in Salem in the 1980s and follows a group of high school field hockey players as they struggle with their new dark powers and attempt to end their losing streak. I've heard this compared a lot to almost like My Best Friend's Exorcism, or just like kind of campy nostalgic horror. Like, I definitely anticipate this one being more fun rather than horrific, but the premise sounds really exciting. I've also seen it compared to Stranger Things, so I would really like to read that. That's one that has been on my TBR for a while. I think I've actually owned it on Libro FM since around this time last year, so definitely would like to pick that one up. And then my other option for pink on the cover would be Sundial by Catriona Ward. I have read one thing by this author before, The Last House on Needless Street. I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to, but the things that I didn't enjoy about it, I felt like were very for that specific story. I did enjoy the writing style, and I said that I would be interested in picking up more by the author because I'm just very interested in reading more horror by this author, so I'm definitely intrigued to pick this up as well. So even though the other book by this author just ended up not being so much for me as I was thinking, I feel like this could be a better match for me. Essentially, I think this is following a mother and her daughter, and I think the mother feels like something's going on with the daughter, and they go on a road trip together where the mother intends to fix her daughter. There's something weird that the mom thinks is going on with the daughter, but maybe this is the type of horror where we might have an unreliable narrator and it turns out, you know, maybe it's flipped on its head. So I'm intrigued by the premise. I'm also intrigued, I'm gonna be honest, by the cover. It's a very beautiful, striking cover, and it's got that pink on the cover, which makes it perfect for one of the prompts in this readathon, as well as I'm just intrigued. Also, I feel like on paper, this more aligns with horror that I like than The Last House on Needless Street, so fingers crossed. Again, just because I didn't like one thing from the author doesn't mean that I'll feel the same about this one. I thought the writing was good, just the story wasn't for me in The Last House on Needless Street, so I'm intrigued to pick this up, and I'm also intrigued to find out maybe a little bit more what this book is actually about, because The Last House on Needless Street, the synopsis didn't really fit what was in the book, for better or for worse, in a very interesting way. So I wonder how much this will deviate from the dust jacket in this book. So that is another option for my read a book with pink on the cover. And then the second reading prompt is read a backlist thriller or horror book. This one might be stretching it a little bit because I don't think it's technically a thriller. it's definitely not a thriller, but I don't even think it's horror. I think it's more of like a speculative academia, sort of dark academia book, and depending on how well this fit or doesn't fit, and it's a huge book, so this one may be more for my all-around April TBR than just the readathon TBR, but I would like to pick up Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, primarily because I know R.F. Kuang's Babel is coming out in August, and she has mentioned a lot about how this is, I believe, like one of the thematic inspirations for her novel, so I would like to read this one. I also would like to read The Secret History because she's mentioned that as an inspiration for her book as well, so I haven't read either of those. I don't know if The Secret History would ever happen because I have tried to read that before and DNF'd it. I would like to try and pick this book up and read it before Babel comes out in August, and since it is so big, the sooner the better that I try and pick this up. Now that I'm talking about it more, probably definitely not going to be for the readathon. It is backlist though, so maybe I can finish it up during the readathon, but this is like a magical academia. It's set in 1806 England, so it's very much like a historical fiction fantasy, which I really do like when it's done well, so I would like to pick this up this month. And then also, just in terms of backlog horror, I feel like I normally pick up a Stephen King during these winter-ween, spring-a-ween, like all of the ween-a-thon readathons that Olivia and Gabby do. I feel like I normally pick up a Stephen King, so I feel like one of the kings of horror would definitely be a good option to read during the readathon. So I might pick up something like Christine, definitely one of his horror novels. This one's also a little bit on the bigger side too, but I'll, you know, comb through his backlog, see if there are any horror books that I haven't read yet. Definitely don't want to pick up anything that's too lengthy, but King is always an option for horror for me. So those are my tentative plans for the Spring-Fling-A-Weenathon. I'm very excited for it. I always have a really good time reading some spooky novels during those readathons, so looking forward to that. Now, kind of moving on for general April, I'm kind of at a point right now where I'm in the middle of about 6 different books. That's very common for me. I was doing better at it this year, only picking up one, DNFing or finishing it before moving on to the next one, but it's gotten a little crazy, so I don't want to make too many plans when it comes to April because I'm already in the middle of so many books. I have a lot of library holds that I want to get through, also just so many new releases. I feel like a lot of my new releases were really top heavy at the beginning of this year, so definitely a lot that I want to get through. So I want to read The Paradox Hotel by Rob Hart. This is, I believe it's a thriller, and it's about time travel and ghosts, and it's like a locked door murder mystery, locked room murder mystery where ghosts and time travel are at stake. So I really am interested in picking this one up. I would also like to read The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. I think this one definitely has a wait list at the library after me, so I do have to get to this one at the beginning of April if I am going to be reading it physically. Otherwise, I'll be back on a holds list at my library. Simone St. James is definitely a thriller author where I just feel like her books are so consistently good, which is very rare for me at least. I'm not a big thriller fan. I don't tend to love thrillers as much as I want to. I feel like I'm always going into thrillers and then being disappointed. So definitely more of a horror fan than a thriller fan. But I just feel like she has really great paranormal thrillers that are just always so solid to me. So I am looking forward to picking this one up. I believe it's about a true crime reporter, and we're following her point of view as she's uncovering this story, and then also we're following someone who was accused of a crime quite some time ago, and I think we're flipping back and forth between those perspectives in this one. So hopefully this one also has paranormal elements because I'm going to be honest, those are some of the elements that I love the most about these books. Simone St. James is always an author where I really love this about her. A lot of times, especially in thrillers, not as much in horror because I feel like in horror you can get away with paranormal things more, but a lot of times I really do hate when you're led to think it's paranormal and then it's like that Scooby-Doo, it's just a person behind the mask every single time. I really do like when thrillers go there and they're they're actually like supernatural elements. So looking forward to reading the latest by Simone St. James. And then another library hold where I know that there are people in line behind me to read this one is going to be Gallant by V.E. Schwab. And this one, I think this is the one where it's Crimson Peak meets The Secret Garden. So that's all I really need to know about it. I've actually only read one thing by V.E. Schwab before, and that was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite books of the year that I read it. I tried to read the Conjuring of Shadows series, and I didn't really like the first book. I DNF'd the first book. So those are the only things that I've tried to pick up by V.E. Schwab. So this one I'm intrigued, and I have been hearing some very interesting mixed things about this one. So I definitely want to pick this one up before I hear too much about it, because I feel like this is definitely one of those hyped books where a lot of people's reviews could influence the way I think about it before diving in. So I would like to pick this one up soon. Other than those priority library books that I need to get to and I have like deadlines for, I really don't have too many other reading plans, other than I did promise myself as soon as I got around to actually doing my taxes, I could order another one of Olive E. Blake's books. Last month I finished my reread of The Atlas 6 and highly enjoyed it. I would especially say if you are someone who picked up the copy that was self-published and you think that will be enough before picking up the sequel that comes out in October, I read it because I wanted to see like how substantial the changes were from the self-pubbed to the traditional pubbed version, and especially the ending. I noticed some things were kind of reworked and retweaked a little bit, so highly recommend picking up the traditionally published version if you have read it before, even before the next book comes out, which should be in October. I highly recommend the audiobook. It's like a full cast narration, and I really loved it. So yes, I'm on a big Olive E. Blake kick at the moment. So I told myself if I actually sat down and did my taxes, something that I've been putting off for a while now, then I could order one of her books. So I do plan on doing that. So depending on when I order that might sneak its way onto this TBR. And then I do have about 11 or so audiobook holds from the library. Those are all on Libby, so whenever they come into me is when I'll be picking those up. So definitely, primarily, I think going to be a very speculative fiction, horror heavy month. Very excited for it. That's been like the big trend for my reading this year, and I've just been having a great reading month. But if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, let me know what your April TBR looks like, subscribe to my channel for more content from me, stay safe, stay spooky, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!